The terrors of the year 1000 refer to the belief that people in the Middle Ages feared that the world was about to end as the new millennium approached. Many Christians in Europe anticipated an apocalypse with the arrival of the year 1000. Now we have this author, Giosuè Carducci, vividly captured this idea in his depiction of the sunrise of the first day of the new millennium, imagining it as a miraculous event symbolizing hope and new life for the generations emerging from the 10th century. Giosuè Carducci is a very particular name to pronounce. Giosuè Carducci is a notable Italian poet, writer, and literary critic from the 19th century, widely regarded as one of Italy's most significant literary figures, who received a Nobel Prize in literature, but in 1906. So he talks about 10th century while he was living 9th century apart. So that's the perceptions that I was mentioning to you earlier. Carducci's work often featured nationalistic themes and reflected on history and literature. In the context of the terrors of the year 1000, his writings provide a literary interpretation rather than a strict historical account, illustrating how the sphere of the apocalypse was perceived during that time. Carducci illustrates how, as the year 1000 approached, preachers instilled fear in the populace with declarations like 1,000, no more than 1,000. The world will last 1,000 years after Christ's coming and no more. So as soon as the year 1000 arrives, the world will end. His generation believed that as the new millennium neared, people ceased the daily work and sought refuge in monasteries, spending the final days of 999th year anxiously awaiting the apocalypse. On the morning of January 1st, 1000, Carducci describes the overwhelming joy and astonishment that erupted among the crowds. Previously, these people had gathered silently around feudal manors, weeping in dark churches and cloisters. But that morning, when the eternal sun, symbol of light and life, rose triumphantly, they erupted in celebration. Carducci wrote this in 1868 at the start of his first lecture on the evolution of national literature, viewing Italian literature as a mirror of the entire modern world. So he argued that this modern era began on January 1st of the year 1000, when people realized the world had not ended. This realization led them to return to work, transforming, damn it, we need to go back to work. Nobody died, nobody perished, the world didn't end. I guess how many of those people were really upset to go back to work, especially the peasantry that were expected to have a life of hard labor. No running water, no electricity, nothing, just substance from the earth. While the nobility collected rent, and the monasteries just preached the word of God. So you can understand how that word was separated in different classes. This realization led them to return to work, transforming the previously dark, closed, and ominous period of anticipation into one of creativity and initiative. Carducci imagined tearful crowds filling cloisters in the final months of 999, anxiously awaiting the apocalypse. However, this notion was not unique to Carducci. It was widely accepted. So there was a long thread of literary authors who attributed the year 1000 to the apocalypse. For instance, a French history book from the 19th century states, "The belief in the end of the world, justified by plagues, famines, and various calamities afflicting Europe, caused a universal lethargy. Everything was frozen in fear while awaiting for the fateful day. All activity ceased, every movement stopped, and hope for the future vanished, leading to an increase in religious fervor. People flocked to monasteries, donated their possessions to the church, and everywhere echoed a gloomy cry, 'The end of the world is near.'" We can check historical records to see if people were genuinely terrified as the year 1000 approached, because you need to take into account that the literary interpretations and the facts were two different things. But we have seen in other places how the literary interpretations, like in the episode of the plague that described with vivid reality what really happened during the plague, and we were able to catch a glimpse of that era. In this case, instead, we have an interpretation that it drives us away from what really happened. Why? Because we have actual documents that prove the difference. And when we check historical records to see if they were really terrified of the year 1000, remarkably, not a single chronicler from that era mentions any widespread fear. One may argue, sure, chroniclers often focus on politics, so maybe they overlooked this. Well, that's possible, especially since once the anticipated apocalypse didn't happen, they may have thought it wasn't worth mentioning. However, we can uncover more about how people felt in those final days of the 999 year. For instance, on December 31st, 999, Pope Sylvester II issued a guaranteed diploma to the monastery of Fulda, a prominent German monastery, at the abbot's request. In this document, the Pope assured that the monastery would keep its properties for the future. If the war were about to end the next day, would he have made such a declaration? His assurance showed that neither he nor the abbot of Fulda had the slightest doubt that the following day would be just like any other. Additionally, on December 31st, 999, Emperor Otto III issued a diploma granting lands to one of his vassals, asking for a white horse in return. While the reason for the white horse is not particularly important, the context is noteworthy, because the emperor stated, "Today I give you these lands in return. You will provide me with a white horse at the beginning of next May." This clearly indicates that he expected the world to continue as usual, just like any other day, without any imminent apocalypse. If there was an impending apocalypse, would the Pope and the Emperor be making those long-term agreements for the future? In the year 1000, many people in Europe were anxious about the possibility of the war ending, partly due to religious beliefs and the notion that the millennium would bring about significant change or even the apocalypse. Similarly, a millennium later, as the year 2000 approached, we had the Y2K bug, the year 2000 bug, so caused by widespread concern that computers and technology will fail to date formatting issues, potentially leading to chaos in various systems. Both periods reflect a societal tendency to fear major transitions, especially those tied to time and significant numerical milestones. This raised fear of widespread system malfunctions in the 2000s in areas like banking, utilities, and transportation, leading to panic about potential disruptions. To mitigate the risks, businesses and governments invested heavily in updating and testing their systems. Ultimately, the extensive reparation, I crashed everything here, helped prevent significant problems. When the new millennium arrived, the Y2K bug largely turned out to be a non-issue.